Welcome in. So today we'll be giving you a small tutorial here and a small explanation of our product. So in front of us here is a casement window, which what you would also call a crank window. A lot of people know it as by the dime name. A quick explanation here. So the way this window is open is the ones that goes to the outside, and then you would have a handle to the on your inside of the house. You rotate it and it opens. I think that's how most people know it as. We call it a casement window. So we're going to go through small details here on how this window is built and manufactured, and we're also going to go into how the interior is going to be looking like. As you can see here on the outside, this is the view from the exterior. The first thing that I want to bring your attention to is the profile of the window. So you can see here we have enough framing around the glass unit. Very important thing here is that the glass unit, which is the biggest surface of your window, has to be properly balanced, and it has to be properly supported. So for that reason, we always try to maintain the same thickness of the profile all around. And whenever we manufacture these windows, we use what's called laser welding. What's laser welding? So whenever we put these four parts of the window together, we laser them all at the same time. So you can see here, this been welded, this been welded as well, and that's been welded on the corner. Why do we weld them at the very same time is because we try to achieve that perfect 90-degree here around the corner of the windows. Because on the long run, if you don't have a perfect 90 degrees with the expansion and the contraction of the vinyl, they usually misbalance the glass unit, and then you wouldn't have a very long or very old window at that time that would last you for a long time. So for that reason, we always use laser welding, so you would have always a balanced window. On the glass here, you can see that it has some sort of a mirror into it. So when you stand in from a distance, you would see that this glass is acting as a reflection to yourself. Reason why is that whenever we manufacture these windows, we focus a lot on the glass unit. So I'll bring your attention here to the cross section of our windows. So looking here onto the outside of the window, this part here, what we call a brick mold. So the brick mold is pretty much your exterior framing, as I would call it, or as you would call it. This one here depends on what you already have. That would dictate us on what size we would use. So we can go either 2 inches, 1.5 inches, 3/4 inch. That's the first option. The second one would be going with the one with the flanges, which would be nailed in to your exterior. However, here, as you can see, this one is already attached to the profile of the window. So on the window, you can see that it has this small railing here. That's actually where your brick mold outside would be snapped into, and that it would come as one solid unit from the factory. So here, this is how the brick mold has been attached. There is no gap around it. So this one doesn't leak anything to the inside, and it has enough space for the windows. So the window is always pushed to the inside, so it's not actually sticking out, which actually helps a lot with hail. It doesn't get you any hail into your windows themselves, so they're always protected, and it also with thermal regulation. So the more the brick mold is out and the window is in, the more of thermal regulation you can achieve. Because if the glass unit is more to the exterior, that means it gets more exposure. However, if the glass unit is being pushed more into the interior and then the rest of it is vinyl, so there's always that space in between for any air that can go around here, so it doesn't really go directly into the glass, so there's always that space. And then the other thing that I want to focus on as well is the glass unit. Looking at your glass here, you can see this is a triple pane glass. And if you pay attention to the thickness of the glass, you'll be able to see that it's the same thickness. So we don't actually use what's called a fake triple pane window. Fake triple pane windows, usually you would have the first one being, let's say, 4 millimeters. The middle one would be less than 3 mil. And then the third one onto the inside, that will be the same as the first one, which is a 4. That wouldn't be really considered a triple pane window. we would call it a fake triple pane, because it has that middle pane, but it's not really thick enough to be able to regulate the heat and the cold that can go in through the glass unit. With our windows, we're using the same thickness of a glass. So you can see here clearly that this glass is the same thickness across all the 3 panes that have been put into it. And for that reason, you will get the privacy feature even if you're not asking for it, which is giving you a mirror from a distance. The next thing, which is about the glass as well, is sometimes you will see that the glass has some sort of a tint. You can see that on this window right here, where it looks a little bit tinted. That is because we are applying what's called the low E. Low E is basically a coating, or it's made out of metal actually. It has levels that goes into it. It depends on how your house is positioned, whether it's facing east or west. So what does the function of the low E is to kind of minimize and filter the radiations that would come from the sun. So as the sun radiations, they hit the glass, they go through the first pane here, they go through the second pane and the third pane. When you have coating of low E applied on every glass pane, that would help a lot to kind of minimize and filter in those UV, the bad UV that would come from the sun, and it doesn't really overheat your house. So that's very important. When it comes to our windows, as I said before, it depends on what your house is facing, whether it's facing east, you got more windows on the east side and then the west side. That would help us to help you to determine what type of low E we should use in this case. The other thing here, whenever it comes to the windows on the outside as well, is you would notice this black strip that goes around the windows, which what we call the spacer between the glass and the vinyl. You will see it here on these windows as we are pointing into it. You don't really notice it until you get close to the windows, so you don't have like a mixed color of the windows. However, we have multiple colors of the windows. As you can see here on these samples that I have with me, you can see that we can actually have your windows painted of any color that you might like. One of the most common ones obviously is the white, which is the most common color. One of the most common ones would be the black one. So we can always paint your windows from the factory with the black paint that would come and fit in with the rest of your house, whatever you're trying to fit in into your siding, or if you're trying to paint your stucco, we can always work with you on that one. We have other colors such as the iron ore, which is also another famous color, as I would call it. We have other options. If you're trying to get an oak stain as well, we can do that. It would look like your wooden windows that you had before, however it's a vinyl window. These colors are also applied onto your interior. So exterior, we can use any color that we have here from a selection, and it's quite a variety here. And then also on the inside, same colors could be applied, and we can use multiple colors with that as well. Now we're gonna go and open these windows and see how they look like when they are opened from the outside. So the first thing you would notice as we are opening these windows is that how smooth they go out. So you would see that these windows are not locking as I am opening them. So they are going with the same speed and they don't really lock at specific points. So, and that is because of the locking mechanism that we use. So we use all our locks for all the windows. They come from Roto, which is pretty much one of the best ones out there that you can get your hands on. We were able to get our hands on that specific product, and then that's what we use in here whenever we are manufacturing these windows. The first thing you will see is the thickness of the sash as you open it to the outside. So that's because of the glass unit being quite a big glass unit. There's a lot of space in between each glass pane, and that would bring us here. So I'll explain to you what's going on inside here. It will be reflected. So as I said before, this part on the outside, this is your Brickmould. It's attached to your window. So this part is what we're looking at over here. So if we cut it, that's what you will see on the core of the windows. The first thing, these are called the chambers. So the more you have here, the more thermal regulation you can achieve and thermal breakage you can achieve. Let's say it's -20 out there and it's 20 inside your house. These chambers, as what we call them, they will break that temperature. So the 0 degree would be somewhere inside here, meaning that you don't get a 0 degree inside your house through the profile. The more you would have here, the more thermal breakage you can achieve. This is a very, very important thing when it comes to windows. If you look at what's going on in the market out there, you would see some of the other competitors. Again, looks like the same window from the outside, also has rails. Probably you've been told that these windows are gonna get you the most efficiency. However, you don't know what's going on inside it, or they told you like it's a casement as well, it opens the same way, goes out, great. I would love to get that window as well. However, if I don't know how many chambers I'm getting inside and how this window is built, then I wouldn't go for that window. So here is an example. Like you can see here, the core of the profile is very hollow. There is not a lot of vinyl that is being put inside here. Compared to ours here, you can see the number of chambers, and also you can see the thickness of the framing around it. Compared to this one here, which is very hollow, the air, it doesn't get that breakage here, so it goes through the first one here, the second one, and then the 0 degree would be inside your house. Compared to here, what you would actually have, the 0 degree, it's still onto the outside, so you don't get ice building up onto the inside of the house. Because you would sometimes replace your windows, or you buy a new house and after 2 years you get ice building up around the windows, and you ask yourself why this is happening. There's probably not insulation, probably it's not built properly. However, this is the answer to that question, is the number of chambers, how much vinyl is being used in there. So we have our windows are actually 30% more vinyl than what you would see out there in the market. We are always trying to make sure to get the most efficiency all around the profile of the windows. So the glass unit always gets enough balance and it doesn't get a lot of cold underneath it. So that way you don't get ice and fog inside the glass units. The thing that is here, that you can see these two things, these are called super spacers. So I'm sure you've taken some physics class at some point, so you would know that materials always expand and contract over the time. And then that usually creates pressure on your house. You would hear that your house is settling. Sometimes you hear cracks in your attic. That's usually like the temperature raises and increases, any material would move. So vinyl moves as well, so does wood, so does everything. But how does it move? You gotta have a very good engineering on why and how and where the move is gonna be directed to. Here we always try to direct the moves and the expansion and the contraction to the super spacers. So if I apply pressure onto the windows, you can see that these two spacers are moving as I do so. So you can see here, this one is moving, same thing with that one. That's because that would absorb all that pressure and the pressure wouldn't go into the glass. So you wouldn't have a pressure crack on your windows. Again, this is another window in front of us. There is one spacer here on the bottom. It's not even positioned properly. So as I move that window, that spacer is not moving at all. So they put it in there. There's not enough research that's been done on these windows. They just put it for the matter just to say that we have a super spacer as well. However, this is not doing anything. There's no functioning to it. Compared to what you see here, that this spacer is actually absorbing the pressure and it's on a 45-degree angle here, meaning that it's actually adjusting with the inside and the outside at the same time. So on top of this chambers, we have your glass unit. So the glass unit, very important thing, which is what you would see in an old window, that the glass usually is attached to the vinyl or to the wood, or usually it's used with silicone. Sometimes there's nothing in between, they just pressure it. With our windows, we never let the glass to touch the vinyl. So there's always this black spacer in between. So if, again, going back to the -20 outside, if it's -20 on the outside, this black spacer is adjusting the glass unit to not detach from the whole frame, because it's kind of acting as a support or as a spring on the side. And then the one on the inside, the black spacer as well, is doing the exact same thing. So it's adjusting with what the temperature you have. So there's always that pressure that is being absorbed from both ends, whether it's from the right or the left of the windows. The space between the glass units. So as I was saying here, we need enough support on the bottom of the windows to be able to carry these windows. So we have a lot of space in between, and then what we use in between those glass units is a gas to keep these windows efficient. That gas is called argon. If you've taken physics classes, you would know that argon is a very dry gas. So we always inject that in between the glass units. We try always to achieve that 100%, although it's not really possible physically. So we got about 98% of the volume that is all filled up with argon gas. Argon gas is going to be in between each pane, so it's going to be on this pane right here in between, and then this pane in between as well. So the more space you have here, the more you can put argon, which also affects the weight of the window. But here, for example, you can see the space in between. There is not a lot of space. It means the argon in there is very, very little. So there's not a lot of argon that has been injected. With our windows, we always have more argon, more than what you would see in the industry, because we actually have the most space that you would find out there. This will be in between our windows. That helps. The first thing, it helps with more argon. Second thing, whenever the UV hits your glass, you would have more space for that UV to kind of lose itself. And then it gets to the first pane and the second, so the third. So the more space you have, the more or the less UV can get into your house. With that being said, we're going to bring you to the hardware that is carrying this glass unit, or the slab and the profile of the window. So here on the bottom of the window, as you can see here, as I was rotating these windows, this hardware was going out and pushing the window, carrying it to the outside. The number of arms is very, very important. So the more you have arms on the bottom, the more you can get a balance on your windows. So here, I will open these windows a little bit more, so you can see here the number of arms. So we always have more arms. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So underneath your sash, there are 4 arms that is carrying this window. On a very windy day, you would appreciate this hardware from Roto, that it's carrying your window. Your window is not losing balance and it's always still in there. And then we use another one on the top to be able to carry it as well, and then maintain the balance so it doesn't really warp out from the frame. The most important thing when these windows are locked, you gotta have something that is keeping it attached to your frame. So if you're not attaching it properly, although you might be using the best hardware on the bottom, you might have the most efficient window, you might have the most glass unit space in between, you might have the most chambers in the industry, but you're not locking it properly. So you would have heat loss around here, so air can get in easily. We thought about that as well. So what we do is we have multi-point lock mechanism. So you can see here it has, as you lock and unlock on the windows, you can see that the hardware is moving at the same time. Here on the top, we always have a lock on the top. This is something that you wouldn't see a lot around here. Most of the companies out there, you would see 1 or 2 or 3 points of locking mechanism, but you would never see one on the top or the bottom or both. With our windows, we actually have that. And the reason that we have it, we've done enough research and we've been around for a while to know that you would actually need multiple points. You would need one on the top and one on the bottom as well, not just the sides, because you would also lose heat on the top. So we thought about it and we added another point here on the top. The number of points that you would have on the sides is determined by the height. So when you buy your windows from us and you get them installed by our professional installers, you will see that you will get multiple points as the height increases. So you would see, for example, here for this specific height, you would have 1, 2, and then 3 on the top. With more heights, you can go for another one here, and then we add another one on the bottom as well. Depends on the size of the window. As I said before, these points, especially the top and the bottom, are very important, because what we notice is that you might have no air leakage through on the sides, but the top and the bottom leaks as well. So when we added this 2 points on the top and the bottom, we actually achieved more efficiency on your windows and less air leakage. Air leakage would happen regardless, but you gotta control it and you gotta make sure that you're not losing a lot of energy from your windows. With that being said, I'll bring your attention now to the inside here on the lock-in mechanism. So as you can see here, there's gasket number 1 and gasket number 2. There is one that is more into the outside and then one that is more into the inside. So these ones, as you lock these windows, these ones like the same as you lock your car. Like when you close your car, you close your fridge as well, you would see that it has a gasket or some sort of a strip around the frame, whether it's like a black one or depends on what type of material that you're looking at, whether it's a car or a fridge or something that requires very air sealing and air tightens. So we use 2 gaskets here. So whenever we lock these windows and they are hooked and attaching to each other, these 2 things that are made out of memory foam, they would always maintain that lashing and always maintain that attachment between the window sash and the frame as well. So that's another very important thing. The more you have here and the way they are positioned. So you see this one on the top would always go onto this exterior, and this one on the bottom would be onto the interior of the window. So even if you get air that goes into the first one, the second one would always be in there to reinforce and make sure there is no air that can come into the inside of your house. Now we're gonna go back to the inside. On the interior, as you saw me earlier opening and closing the windows, I was using one lock actually. A lot of the time you would see windows, especially big ones, they would have a lock here, a lock up there. Your kid might leave it open overnight and the window warps in the morning. Not with our windows. So our Roto hardware, you can see here, first of all, easy to open and close. You can use your finger to do that. So even your grandma can do it. Even your kid can safely lock it and unlock it. And this thing here, as you lock and unlock, on the other end, as I was showing you earlier, all of those points are being attached at the very same time, so it gets you the most efficiency and it doesn't leave any point on the window that is not unlocked. On the bottom here, that's what I was using to open these windows out to 90 degrees. So you can see this is also very smooth to maneuver. So you can always open it this way with just 2 fingers, and then you can always open it to the outside. The windows always open up to 90 degrees. It leaves you some space here if you want to clean the windows. The handle doesn't stick out like that, although it looks very bulky. The reason that it's bulky like that, because this is one of the most efficient ones. So this is not something that would break in a year or 2. It would always maintain its force and always maintain a very good opening and smooth opening to the outside. So as you can see here, this is how you actually open it and close it. It's very smooth. You can do it with 2 fingers. Then it would have something like a ledge here, so you can lock it at a specific point so it doesn't stick out, so nobody can, sit on it or like nobody can break it pretty easily. Onto the inside as well, you would see that the screens are on the interior when it comes to a casement window. So for us to remove the screen, to clean it, or sometimes in the winter you want to remove it, just give it a quick push on the bottom and it comes off. And then to put it back on, same way, and it snaps back on. So it's very easy to remove. Unlike what you would see around, sometimes they have those screws on the sides, and then you'd be struggling to remove it, and then probably you just don't want to remove it at all. With our screens are easy to remove, and also very tight. You cannot actually stick your fingers around it unless you press it on the bottom so it comes off. So this is how the interior of the window is built. Going back to your cross section here, we left at the glass unit. I was explaining to you that the space between the glass is very important. The thickness of the glass is very important as well. And then also another important thing is what's dividing these glass units. using this example here, you will see on the bottom that this is made out of metal. So this is a metal spacer. Metal, it gets colder than any other material. It gets hotter than any other material. It gets rusty, doesn't really maintain balance for your glass. And then it's a metal with glass, usually doesn't go really good, and you would get a pressure crack. With our glass unit, we actually use super spacers. So this material here is made out of the same material that you would see around your fridge door. I assume whenever you go near the fridge and you put your hands next to the door, you don't get the cold until you open the door, and the door is always balanced. Same idea here. That's what we use to maintain the balance of the glass units. So we don't actually use any metal spacers in between. That's outdated. So we use that material that maintains the balance, and it actually expand and contract based on the temperature outside and inside. And it doesn't really lose a lot of energy as well. And the other thing is that it doesn't discolor. There's so many advantages when you are comparing it to your typical window that you would see from a builder, which is made out with metal spacers. So that being said, now we go back to the inside. This part of the window, that's what we call your jamb extension. So the jamb extension is also attached to the window profile. So you can see here, this is snapped into the inside, and then using these rails right here, you can also snap in your casings. The jambs are attached here, and the window itself is attached to the Brickmould. Probably you already know why. We always try to achieve this to be one solid unit. That's for thermal regulation, also for no air leakage that can go around this frame. Because if you install this separate from this window profile, and then you install the window, and then you go put your jambs, most likely you will leave a gap somewhere that would be a potential either air leakage point or water leakage point, or what could be probably a bug would go through inside your house. But whenever we manufactured and designed these windows, we did a lot of research, and we always try to think about the smallest details here. These details, such as making sure that these jambs are always snapped into the windows. And then the size of the jamb, it depends on the size of your walls. For example, if you have a 2x4 wall and then the window already taken a lot of that space, you would see a size like this onto the inside. If you have a 2x6 wall and then you have more space on the inside, then you would see this size of a jamb onto the interior. Whatever is left here, this small gap here, that's where you can put your vinyl trims onto the inside, or whatever interior, the interior design and finish that you are trying to go with. So that's it for your cross section when it comes to the casement windows. The other thing that I mentioned before is the colors. So as I was showing you here on these small samples, that you can actually always, probably your wife would like to choose a color. They always like to go with different colors inside and outside. So you can always pick a different color for each component of the window. So for example, since we are manufacturing these windows, we have the control over your coloring. So this Brickmould could be of a color. The window itself could be of a different color on the outside. Inside here could be a different color as well. And then your jambs can also be of a different color. And you might want different color on each one of them, or you might want them all to be uniform. You want to have a black outside, white inside. We are always capable of doing that and maintaining the same efficiency that you are trying to look for with these casement windows.